Hello, everyone. I'm Yiwei, a software engineer from Qualcomm CSE Linux kernel team. And today, my topic is the cooperation between CPU and system-level cache by using MPAM. OK, first, let's have a brief introduction to the MPAM and the resource control file system. MPAM stands for the Memory System Resources Partitioning and Monitoring. It enables cache partitioning using bitmaps and the maximal percentage limits. It also provides binary bandwidth control for quality of service. To make MPAM more practical and easy to use, we need a standardized interface so that's where the resource control file system comes in. So it was originally introduced for the Intel Resource Director technology, and now ARM is adopting it for ARM, and it will assure the cross-architecture consistency. OK, let's see a very simple example for better understanding. We can create two partitions, P1 and P2, and assign the task 1 and task 2 to them respectively. And now we can change the settings change the bitmap settings in the schematic node. That will ensure that the task 1 will take the first two cache portions, and the task 2 will take the last two. OK, so far everything looks well, right? But there are always problems. There's limitations that some memory system components or MSCs, they are not fully compliant with MPAM specification. They may not have the compatible registers that the MPAM driver can detect, or they cannot even detect recognize the MPAM tags. So one of the system is the system level cache, or SLC. It is located between the DDR and various on-chip device clients like GPU, NPU, or ISPs. It provides high-speed caches for those clients to improve the system performance. So it is originally designed for the client-based usage. So however, we can just implement a solution here by simulating some virtual clients as MPAM partitions here on the system-level cache. So now we get some available MPAM partitions on system-level cache, but this is the first step. And due to the number of the maybe the clients on a specific system, it is fixed. So the partitions we can simulate is also limited. So here comes the next problem is that if the system-wide partition number is constrained by the lowest hardware-supported partition capabilities. That means if we can only simulate two partitions on the system-level cache and directly feed them to the MPAM driver, the system overall, the available MPAM partitions will be also restricted to 2. And actually, this is not acceptable because we still want the fine-tuning abilities for other memory system components. OK, so far, we got that those memory system components, some of them is important to the system, and we want to tune them while maintain the sufficient MPAM partitions available. We can just tune them. So to achieve this, we can introduce a translation layer before the MSCs that doesn't natively support the MPAM. MPAM hardware just will attach a PartID tag to each data transactions so that this transaction can be identified and traced between different memory components. So our newly introduced translation layer will convert the incoming PartID to the MSC specific IDs that the hardware can interpret. So we can just the conversion relies on the mapping tables. So we can just using the SCMI vendor protocol to program it. And also, we can add a new resource type. We can call it mappings in the resource control file system to Just we can allow our users to configure the relationship between the incoming part IDs and the MSC specific IDs. Okay, after resolving above issues, now we can just apply the solution to many use cases. That's a very simple one is that we can let some noisy neighbor thread completely bypass the SLCs. For example, we can treat some background download and software upgrade thread as a noisy neighbor, and we can just isolate them from using the SLC. And this will help to prevent the interference with our critical foreground tasks. So it will ensure a smooth user experience. Okay, here's another example use cases. And we can just, since we have the sufficient MPAM partitions now, and we can implement more complex cases that involves using multiple partitions and mapping them into different partitions on the SLCs. Nowadays, foldable screen devices are becoming popular, so there will be more parallel workload on the devices, and so as just it is similar like to the high-performance gaming scenarios. So in such cases, we can just put some, we can apply more complex strategy on that. For example, we can just find out the most critical tasks and apply more cache resources to them. And but we need to be careful because we don't want to hurt other threads too much. So and also we have the MPAM monitors. It will help us to track the cache usage and the bandwidth usage to specific threads, and so we can tune the configuration for each group accordingly, and maybe in the dynamic mode. So it will help us to achieve the better performance and make it lower power consumptions. Okay, here we have a very simple unit test for that to show the difference between these cases. Here we run two bandwidth MEM tasks running parallels, one as a benchmark and the other as an interference workload. In the default cases, we will run both the tasks will share the SLC to simulate the interference. And in the mapping cases, we will just let the interference task excluded from the SLC usage. So in the 16 megabytes B copy throughput test, we can see there's about 8% improvement here. So actually, there was some difference between this after applying these solutions. Okay, so that's all from my office. And or any questions? Yeah. Mm.
So I'm curious the idea of this partitioning the SLCs by tasks.
Yes, correct.
So
yeah.
I guess how generalizable is this? I know you could customize it very specifically for a specific use case, but is there something where you could say, okay, we want to give system tasks a certain percentage, and then the foreground application a certain percentage?
Yes, this is very typical usage, right?
Okay.
So because we currently in our testing platform, we don't have too much, just mentioned before, we don't have too much partitions we can simulate. So we just maybe have two partitions we can do that. So current test is based on these limitations. And in our maybe for later platform, we can just enlarge the platform we can simulate. We can do more maybe fine-tuning that works on it. Right.
Okay. I might also suggest, I know Kais had a talk about the libQoS and some of the QoS talks, and so we'd be interested in trying to kind of tie some of this in with that as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Saravana?
Yeah, I had a question. Yeah. So this translation layer you're talking about is like extra hardware that you built and included in the SoC. Is that what it is?
But can you say it again? A little noisy. I didn't hear that.
Sorry, the translation layer that you're referring to, that's an additional hardware that Qualcomm has designed and included in its SoCs. Is that right? Is my
Yes.
understanding correct?
Yes, correct. This is the
Okay.
specific hardware because it.
And then have you upstreamed like a driver for it? Has that been done yet?
Yes, we are in the process to do that because we just mentioned that we are just switching to use the resource control system and that we are involving a new resource type on that. So this is what we are doing now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Community can catch. I think adding a new type to res control might not be the best plan. As you said, you want cross-architectural compatibility.
Yeah,
There's a
right.
trick here you might be able to get away with, which is to say you only have one bit of portion. So now user space has to pick 0 or 1, and that gives you the value to use for the mapping without having to change res control and have that on other architectures as well. So I would push back on changing res control as much as possible.
Yeah, but yes, we can. Things we act, but this is we are trying to solve this problem, and because there are some misaligned with maybe the available partitions between different memory system components also. So we are just want to maybe put it more wide in a more wide usage. So I think we can have a more discussion on that. Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could maybe briefly talk about how lossy using this hardware feature is, because on x86, it's like Intel RDT, it is quite lossy. So the way that we've looked into solving this in the past is actually having the CPU scheduler throttle threads if they're chewing up a lot of memory bandwidth. Obviously, like a totally different approach to the solution, but like, yeah, could comment on maybe like the overhead and how to like reason about the trade-offs there.
Not quite sure. Not quite sure about that.
We'll talk afterwards too. It's fine.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so no questions, and then we can finish early. Yeah, okay.
One quick comment, in addition to what the other person was saying, that not only will it, when you throttle it now, it's going to make that particular thread look like it's more CPU intensive, right? So it's going to cause CPU frequency to go up. So it's going to take longer to finish copying or whatever.
It's not copying. I'm not sure.
I think what you're saying is it's gonna like CPU util goes up, right? Because like it's essentially it's stalled on memory accesses more than it would be otherwise. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I
guess yeah. It's like the trade-off is memory bandwidth as opposed to CPU bandwidth. It's yeah, nothing's free.
like so. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.